think there's a 40-year. I think there's going to be a 50-year. There might be a 100-year mortgage at one point. Because it's just FHA, it's only going to impact, you know, the lower class and the middle class. It's worse than lowering a rate because you have a high rate still. And so your pay down is going to be way worse.
Those who are more financially literate are already thinking of ways to use that to their advantage. Okay, how can I use this 40-year mortgage? I can use it to get into it, cash flow for a little while, and then pay it off.
Now that there's 40-year mortgages. So starting in May, you can get a 40-year mortgage. And I remember I had made a YouTube video about it over a year ago. And I was like, hey, my prediction is that they're going to start doing 40-year mortgages soon because they need to figure out a way to lower payments, but they can't lower interest rates. So what are they going to do? Naturally, they're just going to make your loan longer. Like, I think there's a 40-year. I think there's going to be a 50-year. I think there might be a 100-year mortgage at one point, right? Like, and I think that there will be like long-term interest-only mortgages at some point too, because, you know, as things become more unaffordable and everything else, it's like, well, you're never going to pay down principal, but if inflation keeps happening, you'll at least get appreciation and like a fixed payment of what you think it's going to be.
Well, what do you think that's going to do to the market? So the economics is that was like my major in college. What are the economics of that decision to allow a 40-year mortgage? How does that trickle down and affect values,
I have
demand,
so many
supply?
opinions, you guys.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Yeah, you're in finance.
So,
let's hear it.
I really don't like this option at all because on a recent podcast episode, you talked about how you mentioned how the economy was being restructured in a way that was not benefiting the middle class. It was hurting the middle class. Yeah. And I think this is one of the ways that is happening. So you can't impact interest rates. You can't help subsidize and increase supply in buildings. So what are you going to do? You're going to give people the option to basically delay the pain or delay the benefits or decrease the benefits of actual home ownership by giving them a different option. You're going to put them with a 40-year mortgage. So what does that mean? You basically don't pay off PMI for so much longer. So you're stuck with that additional payment. Yep. You don't lose that private mortgage insurance with an FHA loan until you're at 20% equity. Yep. So that's number one. 40-year mortgages, higher interest rates than 30 years. So you're going to be paying more just on the interest rate, and then you're going to be paying it for a longer period of time. So whether you buy a home that is an investment, which many people don't buy primary residences for investments. It's at best a savings vehicle. It doesn't even work as a savings vehicle for the majority of homeowners now, or as well. And so I think this sucks.
Yeah, it's like a Band-Aid.
Can I?
Yeah.
What do you think, Joey?
I just did quick math. Okay, so if you bought a $500,000 home for 30 years at 5%, you're paying $466,000 in interest. If you did it over 40 years, you're paying $657,000 in interest. So it's almost another $200,000 in interest.
And that's not even accounting for the increased interest rate on the 40-year, right?
Yeah, I just did 5% for argument's sake. Like, what if, like,
be even
comparable?
More.
So yeah, so you'd probably get at least another point to a point and a half is my guess, right? So like, if you got 6% on 40 and 5% on 30, 6% puts you at $820,000 interest paid.
Yeah. So here's my perspective on it. I actually just filmed a reel about it, and it seems like it went into the abyss because I never saw it posted. Austin. So
Trip.
With me, this is what I think. It's going to have the same effect that lowering interest rates had on prices, you know, and because it's just FHA, it's only going to impact, you know, the lower class and the middle class. Like, you know, at the end of the day, people always pay up to what they qualify for. They're always like, you know, if they can max out at 45% debt to income, they're going for it. And so if they qualified for a, you know, $2,500 payment before, and that bought them, you know, I guess at this point here in Vegas, that buy you like a $350,000 home or something, $400,000 home. Like now if they spread it over 40 years, that now qualifies them for $450, just throwing out rough numbers. Like, so what will happen? Well, the demand for those homes in that price range are going to increase because now these guys qualify. And we saw it happen when rates got lowered. You know, every time rates got lowered, bidding wars went up because for people, And especially buyers at that price point, they don't care about price. They care about payment. That's their number one concern. They're like, what's my monthly payment? Okay, that's cheaper than rent. Like, I'll buy it. I don't really care what the price is. It going to appraise and I don't have to come out of pocket money? Cool, let me buy it. And so when you make, you know, properties and payments cheaper like this, it has the unintended consequence of market pressure, that people are now going to start bidding more for these properties because, you know, their payment is lower and they're fine doing it. They don't care. Hey, if you're looking to grow your real estate investing business, whether you're just getting started trying to get your first deal or you're trying to scale and get to the next level, you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. We've got events every single quarter that are absolutely crazy. We've got online coaching programs where we have Zoom calls, a community every single week. We give you everything you need to know to start your business, scripts, processes, SOPs, all of it. It's for you so that you can dominate. So if you want to learn more about how to join our community and be mentored by me and some of our top coaches and be around other students who are absolutely crushing it, go to wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a free call with my team. Once again, wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a call today. Yeah, I think it's going to hurt the lower and middle class tremendously because it's the equivalent of lowering a rate. And you know, that's just is what it is, except that now it's worse than lowering a rate because you have a high rate still. And so your pay down is going to be way worse than had you had a lower rate, you know, at that price.
Do you think it's going to drive up the prices of homes? Because like you said, more people are going to be competing.
Yeah, 100%.
For home.
Yeah.
And it's going to disproportionately, like, use the term lower class, middle class. I think of it as less financially literate and more financially literate.
Right.
Because they're not going to have as much money to invest, to save, et cetera. Whereas those who are more financially literate are already thinking of ways to use that to their advantage. I heard about that and I'm like, okay, so what does that mean as an investor who house hacks and buys
like cash flow?
duplexes? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, how can I use this 40-year mortgage? I can use it to get into it, cash flow for a little while, and then pay it off.
Yep.
And then I've cash flowed. I'm not really out of pocket as much and hit with that interest rate over the course of 40 years. So it's really not going to impact me. Whereas many homeowners are not going to, have the literacy to think through that, to understand how that works, or be able to pay it off.
Yeah, it feels almost like a panic button to me. Like, panic button, let's try to make the entry level a little lower to enter into a home ownership.
It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid. And I was watching, man, I wish I could remember his name, Michael something, famous economist, predicted the '08 crash. And he was going into the idea that basically this year, based on inflation and the 10-year yield, he predicted a emergency interest rate drop at some point this year. And so if you combine those two ingredients, as inflation continues to skyrocket, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a long-term benefit to that 40-year mortgage. I feel like maybe if you are on that cusp of home ownership right now, maybe it's good because you could take advantage of getting into a home right now before home prices start to increase because of it. But then long-term, I just don't see it being a game changer. But one other thought too is that the future of purchasing in general is moving toward financing. Like there's a company out there, and Joey, if you know it, or Jonathan, if you can find it, it's a company basically that's financing people. So instead of going and financing an object like a house or a car, you basically get a card and you can finance anything you want to buy, your groceries, your car, your everything. It's just your lifetime financing rain check, basically.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
That's absolutely like that.
So Gen Z might just be financing everything.
It reminds me
And
of
own nothing.
You know what it
nothing.
reminds me of? It was,
And any one little thing goes wrong.
yeah. There was like this Justin Timberlake movie where like he had like, I think it was called Time or something, where he had like on his wrist like,
Yeah,
you're right.
your life was you got paid
Yeah,
in minutes.
you got paid in minutes.
And you would buy
time and,
coffee with minutes, and then when it ran out, you were dead.
You were dead.
You just
Like
drop.
that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's just like,
How morbid.
yeah.
I have a question for Suni real quick, Ryan.
Okay.
While we're on this topic.
Suni, can you hear him?
Yes, I
Oh,
can
now
hear
you can
now.
hear him. All
Okay,
right.
cool. So Ryan and Grant Cardone were on it was either a podcast or Spaces one day where they both said that if you have a child right now, you should be buying them, whether it's a condo or a townhouse, because by the time they're 18 or 20 years old, we're all going to be so priced out of the market.
Mm-hmm.
What's your based on, your financial background, your finance background, and what you're seeing, do you agree with what Ryan and Grant were saying? Is that instead of a college fund, essentially, should we be buying our kids a townhouse, because those 300,000, 400,000 townhouses will be so priced out in 18 to 20 years because they think that like the big companies and VCs are going to be buying them all up. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's where we're headed?
I love that idea at 110% for multiple reasons. And even taking hedge funds, VCs, Wall Street out of the picture, I think it's a phenomenal idea, because think about how you're contributing to a college fund. Every dollar you save then hopefully earns some interest, but it's going to be low. Whereas if you buy a home that is a rental property, you come up with a down payment and then your tenants can pay it off over time, and it keeps pace with inflation. Whereas your investment in a college fund may or may not.
Right.
So you have that property, rents hopefully continue to keep pace with inflation. The property hopefully is paid off, especially if you can put it on a 15-year mortgage, be aggressive with it. It's your kid, like why wouldn't you do everything that you can, right? And then in 15 years, it's paid off. They have that asset that will continue to appreciate, and they basically have a payment coming to them in perpetuity. So I think that's so much better than a college fund, where the college fund would maybe be depleted by the time the child is done with college. That is the whole point of the college fund, right? Whereas you can have a payment, you can have more flexibility to do what you want with the value of the asset.
Yeah.
When it's time.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. Like, buying your kids real estate and passing down things, like what's become increasingly clear to me is like, there's so many ways to, I guess, provide for your kids, right? Like you could start just a savings account and like build up a college fund, which at this point, I don't think your kid's really going to want to go to college 18 years from now, because I think college can be totally different and people are going to be in wealthy world and everything else instead. But nonetheless, I think like, that was the old school way. Then people are like, oh, well, let me go start them a whatever, not a 401k, but just like some kind of stock portfolio, and let me go give to that and let it grow quicker, right? And then like you're hearing these things of like, well, let me go buy them real estate. And that way, when they're 18, they own a house free and clear or whatever, right? Another one being like, I've seen, parents pass down their businesses to kids and everything else. And, the more I'm in business and I'm around really rich people who have been successful, the more I just like come back to real estate being that safest, best investment. Obviously I'm not into stocks, and so whatever. I don't know. And I just know they're not great for me and whatever, right? Long term, they should make you 7-8%, whatever. That's fine. But I know real estate will make far more than that, even if you got a 40-year mortgage, right? Like if you got them the 40-year mortgage today and you put down 3.5% on a property and it was, $10,000, that $10,000 is going to be worth way more in 20 years than putting it in the stock market. It's not even going to be close.